quorum, so we'll make a start to our meeting this morning. And can I first of all apologise for the chair, who will hear later on in the meeting. Remind members also of the electronic devices, make sure they're all turned off so they don't interfere with the Hansard later on. Today we're going to have a business for today. The committee will consider a statutory rule relating to statutory awards and payments under the employment rights legislation, a briefing from the Northern Ireland office on its report into sickness absence in Northern Ireland public sector, departmental briefing on the Work Connect programme, and a departmental response on the recommendations in the committee's inquiry report and on the terms of reference for the departmental review of careers education, information, advice and guidance. And we do have an apology from David McClarty. Is there any other apologies?
This is coming late.
No other apologies. Chairperson business, can I advise members you will notice a full gallery today of students from the University of Ulster corporate secretaryship course, and they are observing the meeting, and the students will be in attendance for the full meeting here this morning. Can I seek members' agreement to write to the department requesting an update on its proposed live and closed consultations?
Yes.
Agreed. Draft minutes of meeting, then you'll find that at page 6 of your pack. And can I seek agreement from members for the minutes?
Great.
That's laid before them. Okay. Matters rising at page 11, and again agreed action points from the last committee meeting, unless members have something else to raise outside of that. Members content? We move on to correspondence then at page 16, and as table. At page 22 there's correspondence from the Forum for Adult Learners requesting the participation of committee members in Adult Learning Week in June 2014. And one possibility outlined is that for members to outline their own experience to adult learning through an interview process. Are members agreed and happy to participate in this type of a process with these folk?
Yep.
Okay, great. Page 195, there was a response from Stan Mullis University College regarding the review of teacher training infrastructure, and advised that it has made a written submission to the recently established international panel. And you all know that obviously there was a discussion on this, and Stephen Farry in 2013. May 2013, then he decided that he would abandon the first stage and set up a new forum to look at that. So a new panel, yeah. So members, bring it to your attention for discussion.
At some stage, Chair, because this is going to be a hugely relevant subject matter over the next few months, but we would need to be hearing both from St Mullis and St Mary's on this as well.
We're getting briefed by the department on the 26th of March, and then we'll schedule.
So maybe after Easter, then we should possibly invite them on to hear what their comments are.
Okay. Members agreed? Yep. At page 196 and 199, and tabled at page 6, there's responses from the University of Ulster, the Queen's University Belfast and the department in response to the 2-hour strike action taken by the University College Union. And obviously, again, it's for members to discuss, but my understanding that the colleges feels within their right to hold a day's pay, isn't that right, Kathy, of the students for this? For this that was held. But again, it's open for members' discussion, and I want to seek members' agreement to forward the correspondence to UCU for their information.
Yeah. They may be within the rights, but there's such a thing as a bit of common sense opposed to a lot of these matters. You know, the lecturers felt justifiably that they wanted to have a 2-hour period of industrial strike, and as a result of that, they've lost a full day. But I'm sure we'll hear from UCU in terms of the rationale behind it, and I think it'd be good to find out. what the rationale on this is as well.
Yeah, well, obviously, the letter here states that or this is from the department, where the industrial action includes partial performance of duties, it is a matter for the employer, usually with reference to the terms in the employment contract, to decide whether this conduct is satisfactory. If an employer accepts partial performance of duties, he or she cannot refuse to pay the worker for the part of the job that was carried out. If, as is the case here, the employer does not accept partial performance of duties, there may be a case for deducting a day's pay for a 2-hour strike action. It would, however, be necessary to determine the terms and conditions of the contract.
Sure. I would have to agree with Pat on this. I think that most industries, whether it's educational or not, that workers usually, in terms of difficulties, withdraw their service for a short period of time. Now, you can adopt an attitude that says, okay, it's done, it's 2 hours, or you can adopt a punitive attitude to the whole thing. There seems to be a punitive attitude. It doesn't bode well for relationships within the university.
Okay, you see what they have.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Fra, but can we get agreement to forward the correspondence to UCU for their information and see exactly what angle they're taking on?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. At page 198, with correspondence from the Committee for Enterprise, Trade and Investment, requesting the Committee's consent to co-host an event in Parliament buildings to showcase the business that was located within the Northern Ireland Science Park. All agreed?
Yes, yeah.
Agreed.
Page 201, there's correspondence from the Committee for, again, from the Committee for Enterprise, Trade and Investment, providing Department of Enterprise, Trade and Investment response on the consultation on the strategy framework to tackle economic inactivity. And again, I'm sure members have seen that.
It's just for the statistics. We're the worst.
Yeah. And again, yeah, I'm sure if members have looked at that, they will see on the statistics within it that we are faring out the worst of, in the United Kingdom, between England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, we're coming the bottom of the league in this particular instance. So it's something to bear in mind.
We'll be coming back to this with the economic strategy.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, Chair, because clearly it is a most welcome strategy in terms of looking at particularly hotspots across Northern Ireland where economic inactivity is at the worst and traditionally has been. But there's no financial bud, as I understand it, made. I would be very keen to see what type of money that both departments are putting in, because what they're proposing is a range of projects and calling for applications. So maybe we could find out a wee bit more detail on how it progresses.
Yeah.
Clearly, it's a good project and we have to welcome it, but how it's going to be rolled out.
Yeah, well, it's still out for consultation at the minute, so we'll have to wait until that closes and then see what the outcome of that is and take it forward from there.
Right.
On page 212, the Department's response to correspondence from an individual regarding cultural skills training. And again, if members any issues on this particular matter.
Just note it was filled.
I'll just note it and move on. At page 214, correspondence from OFMD-FM Committee, informing the Committee of the terms of reference of its inquiry into the Barsco Task Force and seeking the Committee's views. Again, we can forward this to the Department for comment.
Agreed.
Right.
Okay. Tabled at page 10, the Department's response regarding a tracking system for those young people not in education, employment or training. And again, it's open for members' discussion. And obviously this is something that we have been looking at as a committee, is how these people have been tracked right through the process, as tabled at page 10.
I think that members, if they'll bring it back up at the next meeting, could.
Okay. Since this is tabled correspondence, then maybe we'll give members the opportunity to read this. We'll include it in the packs again for next week.
That'll be helpful.
So that members will have more time to look at it and see what...
2 weeks.
2 weeks' time, yeah. Okay. Thank you. There's two invitations at page 224, an invitation from Belfast Metropolitan College to attend the premiere of its film Breaking the Barriers, funded as part of the college's community relations work in E3 campus on the 3rd of March 2013, followed by a dinner. And the closing date for attendance for the event was Monday, the 24th of February. Members were asked to notify the committee staff if they wish to attend. So any members wishing to attend that event, contact Cathy here. Make her aware of it. And again, tabled at page 27, an invitation from STEMA NI, the Skills Sector Council for Science, Engineering, Manufacturing Technologies in Northern Ireland, to attend the launch of a project to support women into STEM jobs in the Long Gallery on Tuesday the 25th of March. And again, the closing date for attending the event is Friday the 28th of March for putting your name, or February, sorry, for putting your name in.
Is the committee playing any role in this event? Or? You recall, Chair, it was one of the issues that was identified as a priority at the STEM event.
Yeah.
That, you know, certainly in terms of those students participating in STEM-related subject matters, it's much smaller than others. So I think that we have a role in trying to encourage that at some stage.
Well, it is actually open for individual members. So if anyone, it's been hosted by Brenda Hale and Sandra Overend. So it's open for any members who wishes to attend. And
Have we ever heard from Centre themselves?
Yeah, we went and met them.
We did as well.
Yeah, we met them at Talis. We were there, and they did a presentation, and then we had the tour of the building.
Maybe if there was correspondence, then we could forward on to members any presentation they would have made in the past. If there's any papers relating to it.
Okay, will do.
Moving on to the draft forward programme at page 228. Up until 23rd April 2013, and other briefings may be scheduled as they arise, but I would also ask members to note that given that the elections will be on the 22nd of May, members will probably be busy at other things. Do members want to leave that week free from a meeting? Or a visit in case a quorum cannot be obtained on that occasion?
So
We'll leave that week free. We're all otherwise engaged. Moving on again, we have a statutory rule at page 231. The Department has laid a statutory rule on the 13th of February. The statutory rule will increase the limits on statutory awards and payments under employment rights legislation. The Employment Relations Northern Ireland Order 1999 provides that the limits on various statutory awards and payments under employment rights legislation are index linked. The amendment reflects changes in the retail prices indexed between September 2012 and September 2013 at 3.2%. The statutory rule is subject to laying procedure but not to any assembly proceedings. The committee considered the proposals to make the statutory rule at its meeting on the 12th of February and agreed that it was content with the proposed statutory rule. There has been no change to the policy content since the proposal was submitted, and the examiner of statutory rule has no points to raise on this rule. Are members content with it?
Content, yeah.
Content with it. Well, that being the case, I have to read out this motion that the Committee for Employment and Learning has considered SR 2014-39, the Employment Rights Increase of Limits Order Northern Ireland 2014, and has no objection to the rule.
Agreed.
Okay, right, members, we are now moving on to a briefing from the Northern Ireland Audit Office on their report into sickness absence in Northern Ireland public sector. And again, I would remind members this has been Hansarded, and would ask you to check that all your electronic devices are turned off. On page 241, you will have a report on the sickness from the Northern Ireland Office, and I want to welcome Mr. Niall Gray, Mr. David Murdy, Assistant Manager of the Northern Ireland Audit Office, who come to witness to us today. Gentlemen, you're very welcome, and it's over to you. You have maybe 5-10 minutes to give us, we have paperwork in front of us, to give us a a short presentation, and then it'll be open to committee for any questions that they have.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take only 5 minutes just to run you through the key points of the report as they relate to DEL. This is a follow-up report to a report that we did in 2008 on the management of sickness absence in the civil service. This report, which we published in 2013, widened the scope slightly. It took in health and education as well. It's probably important to note for the committee that what we didn't do in this, we didn't look at the effectiveness of the policies and procedures. We didn't attempt to get behind the numbers in individual departments, in individual trusts, in individual schools. So it's very much an overview, focusing squarely on the data itself. That said, there's stuff in here that is directly relevant to DEL and will help build a picture. Overall, the trend of absence in DEL is downwards. Going back to the 2008 report, we identified a high of around 19 days in 2001-2. By 2006-7, that had come down to 14.5 days. And by 2011-12, that had come down further to 11.4 days. I'll draw your attention to figures 5 and 6. They're on pages 14 and 15 of the report. Figure 5 shows that DEL has the second highest absence rate at 11.4 average days lost. It's only behind the Department of Justice. Figure 6 shows a standardised rate of absence in order to enable comparability between the different departments. That shows that DEL's rate of absence is the 4th highest, the equal 4th highest. If I move on to figure 13 on page 23, that looks at DEL's performance against the targets that have been set. And you'll see from that that DEL didn't achieve the target that was set in 2009-10. And if you turn over a couple of pages, excuse me, to page 25, there's figure 15, which updates that position for 2010-11 and 2011-12. And again, what that shows is that DEL didn't achieve the target for sickness absence that had been set for those years as well. We did look across the piece at the causes of absence. So, in general terms within the civil service, it's long-term sickness absence that accounts for the majority of overall sickness absence. And within that, mental health issues are recognised as the main cause of long-term sickness absence. That's about it in terms of what we can tell you specific to DEL. And clearly, if there are any questions, we'll be happy to take them.
Yeah, well, it is an overview, obviously, that we've been given, a broad overview. Can you give us any indication as to what is happening within DEL that's not happening within the other departments that has the sickness level so high?
I really can't answer that, Chair, I'm afraid. The policies and procedures that we looked at in 2008 are generally what you would expect. There are policies and procedures and controls which, if applied consistently, would be delivering benefits. The evidence from 2008 is that they're not applied consistently across the civil service. But that's about all I can tell you, because when we did the work in 2013, we didn't go into the individual departments at that level to assess how well they were working.
So you don't know at this moment in time or not whether DEL are applying the policies and procedures that are in place?
Correct.
Okay. Pat?
Thanks. You're very welcome this morning. Clearly, you've identified yourself that long-term sickness is one of the most prevalent reasons for the figures being high. And given that in Northern Ireland, because of the conflict, we would have a higher level of mental health related issues, post-traumatic stress, etc. So the question to be asked, has there been any study carried out to determine whether the existing workforce of Dell, is it related to the troubles in any way? And one can imagine that if we have identified an issue, is there help being given generally within the civil service to help people come to terms with stress or mental health related issues?
If I take those two questions separately, I'm not aware of any specific work in Dell around conditions.
Generally.
Are you aware?
Not aware of any specific research.
Generally, while there's a focus upon mental health in terms of managing long-term sickness absence, again, in terms of the specifics and causes of mental health issues, I'm not aware that that's being addressed specifically. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think long-term as a factor in sickness absence, as again, there's on page 16 of the report, it sort of shows the level, and it's generally been around 70% of absences due to long-term sickness, and that has been consistent for some time.
So, just another question, just on the same subject, is there any department carrying out good practice in terms of trying to resolve the high levels? Is there any work ongoing with the trade union movement, for example, to try and identify areas where they could assist in identifying and reconciling some of the ill health issues?
I don't think I can comment on that, again, because we didn't look at it in detail in terms of what's going on behind these figures. I don't think we addressed that at all.
I think in this report, as Neil said, we wanted to set out the level of absence and show the comparators across the civil service, and bring in the health and education sectors for the first time. But as far as being,
I suppose I'm a wee bit concerned that there hasn't been any, fair enough, carrying out an audit and given the statistics regarding long-term sick. But surely, have you a role of making recommendations? Or can you look at models of practice elsewhere where the things have been done much better here?
Certainly, potentially, we could do that if the CNAG was to commission another report on sickness absence, which sometime down the line is distinctly possible, I would say, given the ongoing nature of the issue. Then we could take the way we scoped it, could do that kind of thing. The problem is, of course, that post hoc, as we were trying to do a huge piece of work here, looking at civil service, looking at education, looking at health, if we'd have gone into those kind of levels of detail, the possibility is we'd still be trying to do it now and we wouldn't have a report in front of us.
Thank you, Chair. And following on from that, you're saying this, the last report was done in 2008. This is a broad brush sweep, if you like, across this. And again, I find it strange that given the level of sickness absence and what is costing in financial terms, that this hasn't been looked at in more detail to see if the correct policy is being applied, why it's not been applied, and to try and bring the level of sickness absence down. I find it strange that it's really only a broad report that's been done and that you haven't looked at it in finer detail.
They're all very good questions, Chair. As I say, if we were to do that, then we probably wouldn't have this report sitting in front of us now. The scale of the work involved in doing that across the civil service, health and education would be massive.
Okay, Fra?
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for the presentation here this morning. And obviously I know that this is not a new thing, but I think back in 2007, and Finance and Personnel, we got a similar report that came up with some similar findings, and the same questions were being asked, and we got the same answers, and nothing seems to have been done. In the meantime, there has been a slight decrease, and I do appreciate it was in the council for a lengthy period of time before us, and I know that even in councils, and usually you find out that long-term sick are usually people that work in the frontline services, and maybe in the case of Dale, it's within benefit offices or it's a thing. But that's the type of information that you need. I know that when people talk about mental health, mental health issues covers a wide range of illnesses, and I also know that long-term unemployed, it can skew figures, and unless you actually identify that out of the workforce that there's 10 long-term sick that makes up for. So it's that type of stuff there that you need in front of you, so do you think? But I have to say, that you're right, the report of all them questions had been dealt with. That's been asked to this morning. I wouldn't have had a report. To be perfectly honest, I'd have preferred not to have had the report and had something done about the thing. And I think that's what Pat's saying about the thing. Now that may not lie directly with yourselves, but going back, say to even 2007, all these questions were asked, and the same answers were given. Surely, we need to start identifying what is a serious problem. And I would come at it from a point of view that if there are people off with long-term sickness and are suffering from mental health issues or other issues, and then I think what we need to do be is compassionate in how we deal with the thing, but we need to deal with it, and we need to offer whatever help and assistance we can on it. But I would like to have a committee meeting sometime where you actually say, well, let's sit down, this is the reasons, this is the type of person that may be off long-term sick, and this is what we have done to try and help it.
I wouldn't disagree with any of that, Chair. All perfectly reasonable. Clearly, you have the option to make inquiries with the department as to what specifically they've done about these kinds of things.
Alistair?
Thanks, Chair. I mean, I'm a little bit bemused. I mean, the figures are certainly interesting, but we've got to wonder what the value is if we don't actually have any detail behind them. Is there a value in us actually having this as a session in the committee, because we don't actually know what's driving the figures? I mean, there's no doubt this is a massive issue. If it's costing the public purse between 25 and 30 million pounds, clearly there is an issue. The gap between GB and Northern Ireland is significant, so there is an issue, and I don't think you can put all that down to the legacy of the Troubles. I mean, we're long enough past that now that there shouldn't be that gap between GB and Northern Ireland. I often wonder, actually, whether it's self-defeating publishing some of these figures, because although we need to be able to monitor how public sickness levels are, I often wonder if certain individuals will view the average figure, realise that they're significantly lower than that, and perhaps feel like they can top up their sick days, still coming in under average, so not alerting any attention to themselves, but claiming days off when they don't need to. More of a comment than anything else, because I don't think we're going to get any real sort of substantial answers, because no work's been done behind the figures. But I do often wonder whether it's actually self-defeating when we publish these regularly.
Okay, Bronwyn?
Okay, thank you. My point has been covered also by the previous two speakers. But in terms of the overall numbers who are off on long-term sick, what percentage of those are off on mental health reasons?
I think there's if you look at section 119, paragraph 119, on page 17, we talk about the principal causes of absence, and it gives some figures there that 29% of working days lost in 067 were because of psychological illnesses. So there's some analysis in there, and obviously those absences tend to be longer term. So there's an average of 35.7 days in 2011-12, which was a slight decrease from the 067 level. So it gives some figures in there.
So 29% of the overall numbers are off on mental health?
Yes, that's in paragraph 1.19.
Thank you.
Sure. Could I just ask one? Because just even the page that you were talking about, 119, 120 and 121, if you go into it, then what's even probably more concerning, and I do think there needs to be more explanations given, and it tells me that there's a problem, and that is that in terms of gender, that it's 17.7 days, which is twice the thing. And what has been done within the department or departments to try and deal with this, to offer whatever assistance can to ensure that the workplace is a better place for women to work in. And it tells you there's a problem there.
It's a perfectly valid question.
Okay, and folk, I know other members has indicated to question you, so well, thank you for coming to committee today and giving us that brief overview. Obviously, it has maybe raised more questions in the minds of the members than answers provided, and I think we will write to the department and seek what they're doing to reduce this, what their policies are, and have they carried out any internal audit within the past 6 years. Members agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, folk, thank you very much for your attendance here this morning.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay.
Members, we now have a departmental briefing on the Work of Connect programme. And again, at page 322, you'll have the departmental briefing paper. And we want to welcome. Are they here?
Yeah, that's the guy that wants this guy.
Right. We want to welcome Mr. Terry Hart, Head of Disability Employment Services for Employment and Learning, Mrs. Margaret Miller, Deputy Chief Executive, and Mr. Peter Shields, Operational Manager, Action Mental Health. And my understanding, they want a photograph taken during the course of the debate this session. Are members agreed on that?
Oh, they're not doing it anymore.
They're not doing that anymore? Oh, sorry, that was the earlier indications that I got, so that's not happening now. So, you know, the next day you'll know to
I'll run out and put a tie in their pocket. You know.
Okay, we're getting this briefing now, and it's over to you folk. We'll give you, yeah, again on Hansard. It's going to be Hansard, and again remind members of the electronic devices, keep them off. And we'll leave it over to you for 5 to 10 minutes to give us your brief overview, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Okay, and just to explain how we intend to run it, I'm just going to give a brief introduction of Work Connect, the background to it, and I'm then going to hand over to Peter to talk a little bit about the consortium organisation, and then this is Margaret Haddock from Orchardville, who'll just give 1 or 2 case studies of the type of clients that we're helping. In terms of the background to Work Connect, it was developed, as you can see from the paper, in around the time of the full rollout of the IB reassessment project. And really it was designed specifically to address the employment needs of those people who have health and other barriers to employment, and a recognition that those clients, particularly those clients on the employment and support allowance, need a bit of additional and specialist support. We ran the procurement exercise, and a very strong consortium which was just put together at that time, Supported Employment Solutions, 7 organisations that do a lot of work in their own right with people with disabilities, but they came together for the purpose of this programme. And what it did, it resulted in the department having access to a very strong group of people who are totally committed to providing employment services to people with a full range of disabilities. So the department were delighted to partner up with Supported Employment Solutions, and it's suffice to say that we already had existing strong working relationships with all of the organisations, and say the consortium has just cemented that. Again, as you can see from the paper, the outcomes for those who are availing of this service is very, very promising indeed, and given the nature of the conditions and barriers a lot of those people face in their journey towards work, again, it's real credit to the consortium. So in summing up now, but the Disability Employment Service and the Department are delighted to be working with the Supported Employment Solutions. We work with them on a number of other programmes and projects as well. And I'll just hand over to Peter then from Action Mental Health, who are one of the 2 lead organisations of the consortium.
Okay, well, good morning everyone. My name is Peter Shields and I'm Operations Manager with Action Mental Health, but I also have a dual hat of co-chair of the SES Steering Group, and I've been asked just to give a bit of information in terms of the formation of SES and who we are and what it is that we do. As you can see from the briefing paper that you've been provided with by the Department, SES is made up of 7 voluntary organisations from across Northern Ireland who provide a range of training and employment programmes for people with disabilities. Action Mental Health and Cedar Foundation are the joint lead partners of SES, and the other partners being MenCap, the Now Project, RNAB, Action on Hearing Loss, and Margaret's own organisation, the Orchardville Society. In terms of how we came about, initial discussions came about probably almost 4 years ago now, in that in June 2010, AMH and Cedar met to discuss possible partnership working in relation to the future delivery of DALE disability employment programmes. And from September 10 through to March 11, exploratory discussions took place with other specialist disability organisations. They gauge the level of interest in a partnership approach to tendering for and delivering DALE's disability employment programmes. In March 2011, agreement was reached to merge the ASSET Consortium and the AMH MenCap Consortium. And both consortiums had previously delivered the Workable programme and NDDP, ASSET in the Belfast area, and AMH MenCap across all other 3 regions in Northern Ireland. And we agreed then at that point that AMH and Cedar would be the joint lead partners for the new consortium, and would take the lead in submitting any new tenders for DALE programmes on behalf of the partnership, AMH in the northern and southern regions, and Cedar in Belfast. The main objective of the new partnership was to implement a supported employment approach in the delivery of programmes to assist people with disabilities and health conditions, and to enter and stay in employment. We agreed that the partnership would consist of locally based voluntary organisations, not private sector organisations, and all partners had previous commitment to delivering high quality disability employment services. The partnership would be pan-disability and would provide specialist provision, not generic provision. And for us, this was a unique selling point, in that clients who were referred into the programme would be supported by organisations who knew who were specialists in that particular disability grouping. We also wanted to ensure that we had the same ethos, the same values coming together, and that's why we met quite a number of organisations, but narrowed it down to the 7. And the values for us include a commitment to provide the best quality service to programme participants, employers and programme commissioners. We also want to provide a person-centred services to people with disabilities and health conditions which respect the dignity, aspirations and choices of each individual. Thirdly, we wanted to share resources, knowledge and expertise to ensure the delivery of a high-quality standardised service. And lastly, we wanted to ensure that there was an openness and accountability to ensure partnership working is carried out in a spirit of trust and mutual support. For us, profit is not the #1 priority, the person is. In terms of the remainder of the timeline, very briefly, as yet we had no name. For 8 months there was no meetings took place because there was no tendering processes taking place, and in December 2012 we came together, decided on the name SES, Supported Deployment Solutions, and we submitted our first tenders, and that was for the Workable programme in January 2012. In March 2012 we then submitted tenders for all 3 regions for the Work Connect programme as well. And in a busy few months, in May, we were awarded contracts to deliver Workable in all 3 regions of Northern Ireland, along with UCL and Disability Action. And in July of that year, the new Workable contract commenced. July being a busy month, we were also exclusively awarded contracts to deliver the Work Connect programme in all 3 regions of Northern Ireland. And over a very busy 2 or 3 months, by September, the programme was up and running, we were delivering it. And as the briefing paper explains, by November the Minister had launched the programme, and we were delivering the programme in all 35 jobs and benefits offices across Northern Ireland. In terms of our management structure, it's a very clear structure where we have a steering group that's made up of one senior management representative from each of the 7 partner organisations, and we meet on a quarterly basis. And the steering group has executive responsibility for the programme and for the consortium. We're responsible for the strategic direction of the partnership and the performance management of the programmes. The steering group also links in at a strategic level with DALE, and we report to our individual organisations, the boards of directors of our individual organisations. We then have a 5-member management team made up of management representatives from AMH and Cedar as the lead partners, and they'd have responsibility for quality assurance, contract compliance and financial management, and also operational engagement with DALE. We also then would have at that level inputs from the participants and the employers. It then permeates down into the individual member organisations, where when new referrals come from the jobs and benefits offices, depending on the client's disability, they are then assigned to that organisation that can provide the best, most specialist support for them. So therefore, someone with a visual impairment will be going to RNIB, someone with a hearing impairment will go to accident and hearing loss, and so on. It's then down to the individual member organisation to manage their own frontline staff, to ensure programme delivery is delivered to the required standards, and to support the participants and employers within the programme. Hopefully that's given you a very brief overview of SES and how we've evolved, and we'll be happy to take questions on that as the morning progresses. And I'm now going to hand over to Margaret Haddock, who's maybe going to provide a few case studies of clients who have progressed through the Work Connect programme over the last 12 to 15 months. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Margaret Haddock, Deputy Chief Executive from the Orchardville Society. What I've tried to do this morning is to give 3 very short case studies to try to give a taste of the different type of people who have required the support of the Work Connect programme. The first candidate was a young man who was referred through the Lisburn JBO, who had Asperger's syndrome plus dyslexia, and had struggled in the employment market for a very long time, had held down jobs maybe for 4 or 5 weeks in places, and then they broke down. Through the Work Connect programme, he was assigned, because of Orchardville's expertise in working with people with ASD, to Orchardville Society, and he began a programme with a one-to-one support worker trying to find suitable employment. He was very keen to get started very quickly into paid employment, and he actually pushed himself forward against advice into a role initially which we advised against, which did break down. Having said that broke down, giving him more structure and confidence and a lot of advice and guidance, he eventually has gained a job in an area which is very applicable to him as an IT technician in a local company. That has now been ongoing for 9 months, so this is the longest he's ever retained a job, and we are continuing to give support to both him and the employer. Second case study, I've taken an older client who had a health condition, a gentleman who was 59 years of age and had been out of work for a very long time. And this gentleman had very, very low self-esteem, and he was assigned to the Cedar Foundation because of the nature of his disability. Michael had very, very low confidence, and through Work Connect he was worked with on a voluntary work option for a few weeks, just to try to let him see that he could do work and he could succeed again. And from that then he had the confidence to tell us what he actually wanted to do. And he received assistance to take forward a qualification in door security, an SIA qualification in door security, and he currently has a job pending if he passes that qualification. So Michael is well on the way to a paid job. I've given you 2 men, so being a woman, I would like to finish with giving a lady's example. And Diane was a very young woman who had very bad mental health issues and previous substance abuse issues, and she had no confidence to go into work at all, couldn't hold down, kept relapsing into her substance abuse prior to coming on to the Work Connect programme. Her story is actually on our SES website because it is very heartfelt, and she states herself she could not have kicked her habit, as she puts it, without the support of her worker from Action Mental Health, who gave her the encouragement and strength to keep going, and she has now secured a job after having support in areas such as CV preparation, interviews, job search skills, but most importantly, one-to-one support when she needed it. She's now working 16 hours plus every week, and her joy is that she has a flat and can buy and upgrade her home just like anybody else, and that job has been ongoing for a considerable period of time now as well. So there are 3 very brief case studies, but I'm willing to take questions on any other issues as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for your presentation, and I commend you on the work that you're doing. on seeking to get these type of people into employment. Looking across the public and private sector, do you find it any way difficult to get the private sector to buy in to taking on people with disabilities?
I would actually say that the private sector is easier than the public sector. We've been involved with a number of initiatives with the department in terms of trying to get work placements across civil service departments, and that has now transpired in a programme that's taking 12 work experiences during the next 12-month period, which, to be honest, is a very small number of clients when you take the whole of Northern Ireland. We also find that in public sector there's more barriers in terms of bureaucracy, issues, insurance, indemnity, and getting people into the public sector. With private sector, it varies again on the size of the organisations, where you have large national organisations, whether it be retailers. They're very much active in terms of their corporate responsibility and trying to work with you and have programmes to get jobs for people. For those in smaller, medium-sized businesses, yes, there is more of a concern because there's maybe a view, maybe ignorance is too strong a word, but an uncertainty in terms of how am I going to cope and how am I going to support a person with disability. And what we've tried to do within the SES consortium is that the programme is not just to support the client, it's to support the employers and to try to ensure that we have the support mechanisms within the workplace to try to ensure that the employment works for both the employer and for the client. So that is ongoing, and in terms of Work Connect, once the client goes into employment, there's a further 6-month support provided to both the employer and to the client to try to ensure that the person can be sustained in that employment.
Okay, thank you. Pat?
Yeah, like the Chair has said, I think it's a very unique piece of work working with those in the community who are more vulnerable, particularly and especially those with complex needs. So, you know, while there's a lot of good work ongoing there certainly is a lot of more work that should be doing as well. You know, when we have the unfortunate debacle recently of almost or over a dozen young people who have learning disabilities who are on a condition management programme course within the Northern Ireland estate, Northern Ireland office estate, being closed down, and the rewards that they're benefiting from it. You know, has the department done anything with the Secretary of State, for example, to try and retain that unique project that's given so much hope to the families, but also the young people involved in that project?
I'm sorry, Pat, which project are you referring to there?
Praxis? That'll be the Praxis one in the Hills.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
No, I mean, the department isn't directly involved with the Praxis. I mean, it might well be that it's the Department of Health that would be in the lead on that particular project, because it's not obviously a focus on employment per se. But I mean,
it is actually. There's over 12 people being employed there.
Those are the employees of the Praxis organisation. I'm not aware of the department being involved directly in it. I mean, what I would say is that there's an awful lot of work ongoing at the moment. You'll be aware of the committee's own investigation into the special educational needs, you know, post-19 group. You know, the employment services feeding directly into that, and we're also working with the FE sector on the ongoing pilot project that has seen a lot of young people, particularly those with learning disabilities, right across the regional college areas now. And what we're doing is, and it's what Margaret alluded to, which is required for this group, it's that one-to-one dedicated employment officer support that can take them from where they're at in relation to vocational training, working with the local base of employers. And what we're finding is quite often it's getting the job match right. We've had situations whereby we've put people through a couple of work trials and it just hasn't been the right fit. But eventually, and through perseverance, you get the right fit, you get the right employer with the right attitude who's prepared to give the young person an opportunity. And before you know it, then you can put that person into full employment, sometimes with a lot of support, and that's fine. That's what the likes of the workable programmes are to do, and sometimes it's unsupported, but it's a very flexible approach.
Chair, if I could come in just in terms of following up with that, I suppose I don't want to be sounded as if I'm overselling what we're doing within the SES, but we've had numerous examples over the years, both here and in GB, where I would describe them general training organisations are trying to place people in employment, people with disabilities, people without disabilities. What we have identified is that there's a need for a client not just to be supported in terms of the generic principles of CV fill-in and preparing them for work, but is dealing with their disability issues and secondary disability issues, and that's where our staff are coming in to deal and support with them. Because in previous programmes you would have clients maybe who have been moved from one support officer to another. What we've tried to do is to sign a single officer to support the client right the way through that process, dealing with all aspects and needs that they would have to sustain them in employment.
No, I appreciate that, and maybe it's something, Chair, the Praxis project we could take up separately, because it really is an important project and there's a huge investment went on from Praxis on that. But, you know, and I should declare I chair the all-party group on learning disability and I chair the all-party group on disability, so I'm quite familiar with the range of good projects, Margaret, including yourself. We've seen them, and we are aware, Peter, of all the good work that all the agencies and the community-based organisations are doing. But, and that's fine and have to be commended, but and correct me if I'm wrong on this one. But the figures that I'm led to believe is somebody with a disability or learning disability is 4 times less likely to secure work than another employee. If that being the case, then we're failing a lot of people, and that is particularly relevant in the way the committee felt it important to carry out this inquiry that we're doing, because parents feel that their children, once they leave the formal education system, are abandoned, completely abandoned. And I have, in the long gallery at events, listened to parents who were in tears, giving witness to the fact that they would rather see their child who's growing up now dying before them because of the fear that's going to happen to them as well. Margaret, you were there yourself when you seen this. So what more can we do, or what's the greater targets to give greater hope and aspiration, not just to that young person who has learning or physical disabilities or complex needs, to give them a greater confidence. Because there's no doubt about it, you know, people working at that level get a huge range of therapeutic, you know, conditions that helps them progress through life. Mm-hmm. So, can you give us the figures, for example, the figures that I gave, 4 times less likely, is that the case? And what's the targets for the department to reduce those?
Okay. Well, if I could respond first and then give Terry some time to respond. The figure does vary between 3 times and 4 times. A person with a disability is less likely to be in employment than any other member of society, and we can't walk away from those hard facts. I suppose what I would say is that the department, I think, also does unseen work in its match funding to projects through the European Social Fund at the moment as well. And in particular, Pat, I think you refer to a lot are people with learning disability, and that's why I'm choosing to respond, because that's my area of expertise with Orchardville providing services for people with learning disability. And there is a constant fear of parents when their young adult then is going to leave school at age 19. But what I would say is that there have been very good pockets, I would put it like this to the committee at the moment, of practice on transition work across Northern Ireland, and I will highlight my own organisation in that, where transition services have been developed from as far back as 1997-98, and in fact we presented in 2001-2002 to a much wider group of MLAs in relation to what needed to happen for people with disabilities and moving on from special education onwards. Money was released at that time into the Department of Education to assist with that process, and the outcome of that was the appointment of transitions officers employed by the department, and the impact of that has been negligible in that I think we talk about different things. We talk about process and programmes to assist. What we need to do is to be working with young people with disability from an early age and their families to create confidence and to create the pathway and the knowledge of the pathways that are there. And that is one of the things that is lacking, is the knowledge of the pathways through FE and then into the like of programmes like Workable and Work Connect, if they have already been through an ESF programme. We have a piecemeal service across Northern Ireland currently with the ESF projects. We can't walk away from that. But I have to say that the department, DES department, have been very supportive in match funding these transition programmes in ESF, and also in taking advice and guidance from the voluntary sector over the last 2 years in particular in that issue.
And what I would say, Pat, I think I'm due back here in a few weeks' time. We're in the process of developing the disability employment strategy at the moment, which is, I think it's a bit of a unique partnership work, because the actual strategic working group is a minority of departmental staff and a majority of key stakeholders, of which Peter and Margaret are two, and they're joined by other disability sector representatives. And the whole thrust, I feel like we've agreed on, you know, a set of 5 common themes at the moment, but the primary one is effectively about supporting more people with disabilities into work. I think we're very good at the moment, and we've got really good programmes working in conjunction with the sector of helping people to stay in work once they make that Rubicon shift into employment. But the key objective, and we will assign targets to this, will be, 1, the target for those with more profound, long-term, significant disabilities, and secondly, it's about moving people from unemployment into and obviously I'll be able to give you an update, but we have categorised those people. It is, you know, young people with learning disabilities, with more long-term chronic mental health conditions, people with sensory disabilities, and I think we've got a great opportunity to do an awful lot in the next couple of years.
Joanne, I look forward, I must say, to that, because we were talking earlier about the economic and activity strategy, and that links onto that as well.
Yeah.
And it would be remiss of me, and I'm finishing this chair, that not to acknowledge the Minister, Stephen Farry, who has attended openly and readily to the all-party groups that I chair, to have that discussion with people themselves and parents as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Fra?
Thanks for the presentation. I know at the start of this whole process, when ESA was set up, when the work-related activity groups were set up, you know, I had some concern that my mother had to sit in DSD, so you would get a lot of that stuff coming through. And I think I still have a number of major concerns, but as said, it's heartening when you see the department and a number of groups who work in the cold face of disability and coming together to try and think, and even the small steps that have been taken and providing it's good to see that there are some outcomes to it. But in terms of the people that you've provided employment for, do you track them to see if they stay in employment, or if they come out of employment? Is there a mechanism where they're worked with again to ensure that they can go into other employment? And how do you gauge that? Do you do it over 6 months, over a year, over 18 months?
Well, this programme was set up that clients would have 6 months initial support to try to get them into employment, and once they do go into employment, they'll receive a further 6 months support. Now that differs with the work programme in GB, which is a longer period of time. I think it was only 6 months. But again, what we try to do during that 6 month period is try to develop support strategies within the workplace, either that through peer colleagues, through supervisors, managers, to try to ensure that individual retains within work. If coming towards the end of that period, the individual is still showing signs that they need ongoing support, then referral can be made to the Workable programme, which will then, and again that's been delivered by, again, SES, by UCL and Disability Action, that the clients can link into the Workable programme and continue to receive up to 2 years continued support, again dealing with all the issues that they might have and the issues that the employer might have. So the emphasis is very much about retention. It's not just about getting people in, getting a stat and saying we've got an employment. It's about retention, because for very many of the client groups, particularly people with mental health, in the past where we've seen people fall out of the employment very quickly, particularly in the first 3 months when they go into employment, it's imperative that that support and that specialist support is there for them. That's not to say that people will not fall out. People may regress in terms of their disability or their health condition, but it'll be about another 3 or 4 months before we're in a position to give stronger stats in terms of sustained employment, because although we're showing stats for this year, of 13-14 of 38% of registrations, client registered on the programme going into paid employment. It'll be 6 months after that before we can see whether they're still being sustained there. And indicative figures at the moment are showing in the region of about 80% are being sustained, albeit they're small numbers, and over a period of time we could be able to monitor that a bit better.
I mean, we're tracking the data on people who are leaving the programme early, and quite often it's just down to a deterioration in the health condition. It was people who decided they wanted to give us a real go. They have worked in the pre-employment stage. They've made the transition into employment, and through no one's fault, and certainly not the SES consortium who are working alongside the employer and the employee, they just digress, or it's just too much for them. But there's always an open door for them. If they decide that they want to come back into the programme, then they would be allowed to do so. So it is in recognition that sometimes people will not be able to maintain employment, but certainly the support services are if that is the case. And even if it's a temporary blip, then they can come and hopefully with the approval of the employer come straight back into work again.
To see, just one further question, Terry. To see in terms of people that are recommended from the department to the consortium in relation to it, because when you look at those that are moving from incapacity benefit across into ESA, there have been literally thousands and thousands of people who have been taken off that some people are left devastated because of that. And it seems to be a good step, but a small step. Is there any way that you are looking at how you expand that and how you take more people into it? Because most people just go away, go into their houses. They're suffering from mental health problems. They're suffering from other disabilities. They just live with the terrible thing that their benefits have been cut in half or 3/4 or something like that.
I was going to pick up on our marketing, if that's... From an SES point of view, we would be aware that to reach people and to let them know about the programme is very, very important, and therefore we had quite a comprehensive marketing strategy around that. And I suppose our marketing strategy was a bit different because we were going to the places where we felt people who were unemployed and needing help, like doctor surgeries, the local library, and all those kind of venues where people who are unemployed and are putting a day in. So we've been targeting those areas quite carefully, region by region, and making people aware through leaflet drops and things like that about the programme. So, as Peter says, it's still relatively early in this programme to be quoting stats, but we have to encourage them to go to the Jobs and Benefits Office, and then the referral comes through to SES. But knowledge, it's about knowledge and making people aware, and we've been working also with the senior moment with the benefits with the benefits to let them know and to inform people maybe about SES.
Yeah, one of the weaker aspects of the programme, I'm not saying it's a criticism, but it gives only 6 months to try to get people into work. So when we receive referrals from the Jobs and Benefits Agency, depending on what the disability or the health condition is, we will then allocate them to the various SES partner organisation who specialises in that disability. But at that point we are screening the person for suitability for the programme, gauging whether we think there's the potential for that client to go into employment within a 6-month period, which is quite tight. Which is why in terms of the target set by the department, we're looking at, in terms of referrals coming in, we're looking at 60% of those clients would be registered, so 40% would be deemed not suitable for the programme. If the programme was maybe over a 12-month period lead-in, then there may be more clients who could come on and reduce that 40% non-acceptance figure. And to some degree, we are looking at individuals who are closer to the labour market. It's not a training programme because we're not providing training per se, although short bursts of training may assist someone in terms of looking for a particular job. It is an employment programme, and so from that point of view it maybe does restrict those with more complex disability needs from maybe engaging in that programme. But as Margaret alluded to earlier, most of the organisations have ESF programmes which are run over a longer period, and clients can then subsequently access that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Fran. Bronwyn?
Okay, thank you for your presentation, and I suppose we're all very conscious that we are dealing with an extremely vulnerable group of people, and you've seen the outworkings of that in Britain. You make reference in your presentation that while this programme is largely voluntary, but you do maximise numbers. How do you actually do that?
Well, it's effectively through active encouragement and influence from the frontline employment advisor staff, because the nature of the regulations at the moment is if a person is an employment support allowance in the work-related activity group, their only obligation is to engage with the frontline employment advisors, those advisors who have been trained to deal with people with health and other conditions in the way of employment. So it's really during those interviews, that's the opportunity that the frontline staff have to sell Work Connect. What we've done to try and, I suppose, supplement that is to invite supported employment solutions staff into a number of our jobs and benefit offices, just in case the client is apprehensive, and a lot of them might well want to go on, but they might be apprehensive. They have a fear that if even they engage in Work Connect, the programme, it'll impact on their benefit, which of course it won't. So it's a selling to the client group. And that's really the key to it, which is why our success rate is above our target, but our referral rate is below, and we're trying everything that we can collectively to increase that, because there's certainly the capacity to deal with more clients, but ultimately that ESA RAG group, it's their choice to actually engage in the programme in the first place.
Would you recognise that there are people who are wrongly declared fit for work when they're not actually fit for work? So, I mean, for example, if someone's taken off benefits and they're put onto job seekers allowance, there's a declaration in that form that asks you, are you fit, able and well to work, something to that effect, and they don't sign it. What happens in that particular situation? What safeguards do you have in place for that vulnerable person?
This programme and this client group won't address that. I'm not sure what our policy is in relation to those people who come through the WCA process and are moved on to job seekers allowance. I'm just not aware of that, because obviously what we're dealing here, the client group of Work Connect, is those people actually who move on to ESA work-related activity group. The JSA client base, those people who, certainly they themselves don't feel as if they're fit for work, is a difficult area.
Okay, David.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for your presentation, and wishes all the best with the work. And Terry, you just really touched upon it there in relation to the referrals against your targets against performance. But were the referrals, are the targets too high?
It's difficult, David, because we set the targets based on the number of JBOs and trying to work out an average of the people who were participating on other programmes that are available to this client group. We always recognised they were challenging, both from a referral point of view and even the success rate of those who were referred in. Mm-hmm. It's not something that I would be minded to drop. I think it's something that we should be aspiring to. And there was as you often get, there was an immediate influx of clients onto, and I think that's because a lot of the advisors had clients who were keen on work and were desperately waiting on something to move on to. We found that with the fresh claim ESAs and maybe those people migrating across from IB, that it is certainly steadied. But in the last couple of months, that's why we've decided to take proactive, some proactive actions with the SES consortium, particularly targeting those offices that have a high footfall of clients in the ESA RAG group, but proportionally their referral rate is not as high as we would expect it to be. So it is a bit of sort of selling on its hearts and minds, but I think we're determined to try and increase those. And even if we move gradually month on month towards that overall target figure, the referrals are one thing. It's the actual conversions from referrals to starts, because we don't want people to start inappropriately referring clients onto the programme, and we have a good understanding with this consortium. If they find that they're getting clients referred that they don't think are appropriate for the programme, particularly because of the seriousness of their health condition, then they're honest brokers in that, so they're the gatekeepers. So we want to get appropriate referrals, and I do think there's margin for improvement.
And Margaret, sorry, Chair, Margaret had made reference to the marketing that we had been doing.
Yeah.
It's not maybe formal marketing, but when we awarded the contract in July, we had the programme up and running within 2 months by September. And we really went all out to try to ensure that by the end of November, when the Minister launched the programme, we had gone to all 35 jobs and benefits offices in terms of promoting the programme. That continues in that our staff, our management team in particular, are out with all 35 jobs and benefits offices on an ongoing basis, again refreshing new staff who come in about the programme. And Terry's alluded to the pilot that we're doing in the Foyle Jobs and Benefits offices, where we, once a week, we are there for a full afternoon where Jobs and Benefits office staff will identify potential clients who will then meet with the SES staff. And we'll monitor that over the next number of weeks, and if that's proven to be successful, then we will be looking to widen that out to other JBOs. And as I say, in the Foyle Jobs and Benefits office, we can see an immediate increase in the number of referrals that are coming through into the programme, albeit we also want to monitor the suitability of some of those referrals who will come through.
And in addition to Foyle, Newry have just agreed to come on board as well. We were looking at one of the bigger offices in the southern region as well, so that'll be Foyle and Newry. We'll be targeting on that almost like a clinic basis.
Okay. Peter, you had indicated in relation to the public sector, it just maybe wasn't as easy as what maybe people like yourselves would think potentially, and I was just wondering why that was, because of the range of work that would be available through the likes of parks, leisure, clerical positions and stuff, and obviously some of these public bodies as well, particularly local councils, that have their disability champions and various things. There's a lot of stuff in place. What's the difficulty? It hasn't been as...
Well, if I kick off, I mean, what I would say, the public sector is a massive organisation. I think it was alluded to that the civil service and maybe one body that doesn't come out as favourably. I've been working with the Department of Finance and Personnel to, in conjunction with Action Mental Health, to get the pilot work placement project up and running. So it's a small first step. But I mean, there are a number of councils that are doing great work. I mean, Belfast City Council in particular have not only offered up work placement opportunities, but have actually ring-fenced jobs.
That's why I asked the question, because I've seen some on some of the other schemes. There's been some very successful local councils,
and they're taking it further than just offering ring-fenced opportunities. They're offering pre-employment programs, which means that for those people with disabilities, they can go through like a 2-week program that prepares them for the key stage in the recruitment process, which is the interview or assessment centre. And what we're finding is the feedback from the employers is really, really positive in that it's actually the disabled applicants that are shining at the recruitment stage because of, one, the little bit of preparation they've been given, but two, their absolute desire to get into the job. So it certainly isn't universal. There's more that can be done, but and for those public bodies that are engaging with us, then the results have been very, very
I
positive.
think it's an important clarification. When I didn't make that statement earlier, I was referencing more the civil service departments as opposed to other public sector bodies, where within health trusts, city councils, even the colleges of further education, we are making inroads in there, but within the civil service departments it's really more difficult.
Thank you.
Thank you again, David. Can I ask you, on your programme, are you satisfied that you're covering all of the, if you like, the constituencies right throughout Northern Ireland, that you're getting referrals from all of those particular areas?
Yeah, I'm looking at stats here up at the end of last week, and you are seeing variances from office to office.
Yeah.
If I take the Belfast region, which goes down as far as Downpatrick and Ballynahinch, you're looking at 293 referrals. For the northern region, 398 referrals, and for the southern region, 380 referrals. So there's not too much of a difference between them. Within those regions, you'll still see significant variances. In one office in the northern region, you're looking at 134 referrals, and in another office you're looking at 8, and in another office you're looking at 4. So there is variances within the regions, but the regions in the main are being adequately covered, I think, in terms of referral.
Thank you. Again, no one else has indicated to speak or to ask a question, so thank you very much for your presentation to committee, and very good indeed. And again, I want to commend you on the work that you're doing in seeking to get these type of people into employment. I think it's a very worthwhile exercise. Again, thank you very much. Right, members, we're going to move on to departmental response and the recommendations in the committee inquiry report on the terms of reference for the departmental review of careers, education, information, advice and guidance. And again, this has been Hansarded and correspondence tabled at page 20. Yeah, tabled at page 29. I want to welcome Ms. Frances O'Hara, Head of Career Service. We're running a bit ahead of time.
Chair, see the point that I briefly raised, the practice project within Hillsborough in relation to a number of people with learning disabilities and the proposed closure of that. Could Cathy maybe advise us at a later stage what we can do in regard to that, in terms of, it's the Secretary of State who would have governance on that, so not...
Yeah. Okay, we can get that done for me if that's okay. Now can I welcome Ms. Frances O'Hara, Head of Careers, Service Delivery Department for Employment and Learning, Mr. Michael Good, Assistant Director of Skills and Industry Division Department, and Mr. David Hughes, Director of Curriculum, Qualifications and Standards within the department. Again, can I say, look, you have up to 10 minutes to give us a brief overview, and then we will then question you. And again, to remind members and remind you folk, this has been Hansarded.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members. We welcome the invitation to come and outline the plans for the careers review, and we'd like to go through how we propose to build on the work of the committee that was on your report that was published in November. We see it as a rich and quality data source, full of evidence for us, and we have responded, hopefully, in recent days. You've received our response on the detail of your recommendations and how we propose to take things forward. In a few minutes, I'll ask David and Frances just to go through those recommendations and our response to them, and then we can perhaps move on to quickly talk about the terms of reference for the review and the way forward. So if you're content, Chair, I'll hand over and look at to Frances and David and look at the individual recommendations.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay, Chair, if you're content, we will go through each of the recommendations in turn, if you're content with that.
Yeah, I think we're easy enough with that. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The recommendation 1 then is really looking at the statutory duty, and it's under the title of developing a consistent approach, and the thrust of it is really the request to examine the benefits of introducing a statutory mechanism to ensure consistency of approach and high quality across the schools and colleges and universities. And I think David just wants to say something in particular in terms of the position on that.
Yes, certainly. I think it's I'd start from the position that clearly there's a statutory responsibility set out in the curriculum to provide careers education. And so that, with that already in place, and with the role of ETI including careers education in its inspections, there is a strong underpinning of that responsibility within the curriculum to ensure that it is being delivered. I think the question that the committee has raised about an overarching statutory duty, and I know that reference has been made to that proposed in England, is something which needs to be looked at in the context of the review of the current careers strategy, and I think that would be a valuable input to that consideration.
Okay, as members, any questions on recommendation 1? Sure. Chris, yeah.
Thanks. Appreciate what your comments in relation to that recommendation. do you consider there to be an inconsistency of approach across schools and colleges at this moment in time?
I think what the inspectorate would demonstrate from inspections which include careers education is that the quality will vary. I think the quality has improved significantly since these inspections are a required part of every inspection. But whenever there are some schools for whom their careers education is evaluated outstanding and others that it's merely satisfactory, that in quality is being shown up. The degree of difference in approach, in input, in access to resource, and so on, is likely to actually be quite minimal in the sense that there is a unity in the curriculum. There are connections between schools as to how careers are taught. Within each area learning community, careers education is one of the strategic priorities given to each area learning community, and there will be careers subgroups at each community. So there are many mechanisms for, if I put it, evening the way in which careers is provided in schools. So the degree of difference that might exist in other jurisdictions wouldn't necessarily exist, but of course there is going to be some difference.
As a chair, I just think this is, members might agree with me, I think this was one of the key points of our findings in our inquiry, that there does seem to be an inconsistency in terms of approach, and I recall testimony to the extent where people were suggesting that in no small part falls on the leadership of the extent to which the leadership of the school sees this as a priority issue, rather than any system that is in place to ensure consistency of delivery. So it'll be interesting to see what the review finds in relation to that. There's obviously some fantastic careers work going on, but one of the biggest feedbacks for our inquiry was that there's also a large degree of inconsistency and an over-reliance on the leadership and discretion of the school in terms of what budget is allocated for careers guidance and what time is spent in relation to it. So it'll be interesting to see what you find in the review. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, and I think to follow that up, I think inconsistency right across the areas was something that really bugged this committee, because as we're going through the whole inquiry, we did discover that, you know, schools were doing so many different things that it just didn't tally. Unless that we have consistency going forward, you know, this inquiry to me, well, it may be the wrong terminology, but it's a waste of time, because unless we have consistency right across the entire area, then I don't think that we have achieved what we set out to achieve, and that's something you know, that needs to be thoroughly looked at to ensure that we have that consistency right across the board.
Chair,
sorry.
Can I ask one quick supplementary? Just I think that begs a question in terms of how the Department of Education will be involved in this review as well. As I think as our inquiry found, Chair, that a lot of these issues are as much the responsibility of the Department of Education, and the Agency for Change in relation to them rests with the Department of Education as it does the Department of Employment and Learning. So maybe you could say a bit about where that comes into play in relation to the review as well. Thanks, Chair.
Well, certainly, the existing career strategy is jointly owned between the two departments. The review is to be done jointly, led by the two departments, with the intention that any successor strategy is also a joint strategy owned by the two departments. So there is no doubt that it is recognised that there is a joint responsibility there.
Okay, Pat.
Yeah. I'm going to try to cut to the chase here with taking on, particularly on this recommendation one. I would be very keen to see where is the template and where is the guidelines for DEL officials in terms of giving careers guidance to young people.
the template in terms of what's expected of them, what schools expect of them.
Yeah, one can imagine, as the chair has said, we have painstakingly and intensively had a committee inquiry into careers grading. And one can imagine the result of that. The key areas where we should be encouraging people to go forward on are STEM, ACT and various other areas. So I want a walkthrough of what you're going to do as a result of that general inquiry, what your careers people are going to give to young people.
I think maybe if in areas where there's been skills shortages or skills mismatches, I think we'll have to look at the review of how those are addressed across the economy and how that information is brought back into schools. Things like real-time labour market information or closer to real-time labour market information so that young people, parents and subject teachers and careers teachers and careers advisors all have up-to-date information.
No, I accept that, Michael, and I'm not interrupting you intentionally, but the chair's point is so accurate in terms of consistency and continuity of the role of careers advisors. Can you share with us what you have been using up until the inquiry commenced and what you're going to use now to progress it, highlighting the committee's priorities?
Well, the role of a careers advisor when they go into school is to take the young person from where they are at that particular point in time, and that varies, depends on career maturity, depends on where they are, but take their abilities and aspirations and the experiences that they, and the advice that they have gleaned to get them to that point, and then, where possible, shape and match that to the current and future needs of the labour market. That's really what their role is. Youngsters are surrounded by people who can give them advice, and lots of that advice is really useful and very influential. Parents give them advice, employers, teachers, all sorts of media sources they're getting information from. It's the advisor's position, it's the advisor's role to look at where that young person is and try and help them manage that rich source of data that they might have, or limited source of data that they might have, and shape it into something that helps them make informed decisions about their future career path. And the key role that we play, as Michael says, is to make sure that that's informed by robust labour market intelligence.
Yeah, but Pat, if I can comment, I think the inconsistency wasn't really with careers advisors, but it was with careers teachers, and that's where the real inconsistency come in.
And from my perspective, you know, clearly what you've said in the last few months, you could have said 6 months ago. I want to know what difference you're doing now in terms of providing that additional information that's going to enhance a young person's opportunity for a career.
The significant difference that's happened over the past year is that careers advisors have been much more aware of the world of work. We have introduced, for example, 5 days industry placement for every advisor, so that they have much more exposure to what's happening in the world of work. I think before we could have been criticised for being too heavily interested in just the aspirations and abilities of the young person, irrespective of maybe what the future trends in terms of the labour market were. We have redressed that balance a bit over the past year, but we've much more to do.
So then I'll finish here after this because I don't want to go on too long. Can you share any information textually that you have now sent out to your careers advisors and shared with education in terms of the way forward as a result of this inquiry?
I think it's early days, to be honest. We've taken that, your recommendations, as I said, it's a very rich and deep source of data for us. What we want to do is build on that as we go through the review, so that we take the recommendations that you have made and where we agree with them, and I think our response shows that we have agreed with virtually every one of them, to take forward and include as part of the review. The terms of reference we have shared this morning reflect the sections of the report, and hopefully you can see that we are taking all the data that you've gathered, the evidence you've gathered, we've taken very seriously, and we're going to, in the next months, work forward to try and address those issues. But I think it's a bit early in the process for us to be able to give you an exact solution to the problem that you've identified.
Okay, Pat. Okay, folk, maybe we can move on to recommendation 2.
Recommendation 2 then is about the entitlement framework and the improved choices open to students, and the need to offer independent and partial careers advice to help them navigate their way through those choices. As we've said in the response to the committee, we understand that the entitlement framework, while offering an excellent opportunity for young people, a much wider range of subject choices, it does present certain problems for them, helping to understand the implications of the choices they may take. And we're fully aware that school that they're currently in may well not be the best person to offer them that impartial, independent advice in terms of what they should pick. So we've, again, over the past few years, strived to see all of the Year 12 pupils on a one-to-one basis. We've moved from a position where we were seeing in the low 60% to the position now where we're over 90% of Year 12s are seen on a one-to-one basis by the careers advisors. So we want to continue to increase that. We want to see 100% of the Year 12s on a one-to-one basis. And the driver for that is to make sure that they are aware of the implications of whatever choices they make in terms of the entitlement framework.
Yeah, well, there is one issue, I suppose, within the recommendation was raised by the colleges, that students in some schools aren't being offered the full range of the options envisaged by the entitlement framework, as some of these schools wish to retain the students to do A-levels. Now, that's a difficulty that needs to be overcome. What's your comment on that?
Well, I think that's a risk with the schools offering a much broader range of subjects, that there is a risk that young people will be encouraged maybe to stay on at those schools when the best thing for them may be to move elsewhere. So that's why the need for an impartial one-to-one interview at that point is even more crucial than ever, and that's why we want to see 100%.
Are you satisfied that would overcome that difficulty and that problem?
Well, young people are influenced by lots of things. Their parents have a big role to play here. Often the expectation from parents is that they want to stay on at the school. They prefer them to stay on at the school. But really, we're coming at this, as I said earlier, we're coming at this from balancing what their abilities and aspirations are with the future labour market needs, current and future labour market needs. So that's really what we'll be talking to them about, where they can make fulfil their potential, what's the best route for them. If that means staying on at their existing school, that's fine, but if it's not, we will advise them accordingly.
Okay, fair enough. No other members. Move on to recommendation 3.
Recommendation 3 is simply in respect of ensuring that careers is compulsory within the curriculum, which that statutory duty to provide careers education is already in place.
Okay. Okay, any members have any comment on that? It would appear the department agrees with the recommendation, but it has not really responded to the actual recommendation of careers as a compulsory subject within the curriculum.
The curriculum isn't defined by subject, but by learning areas, and the learning area careers would be included within the learning area of learning for life and work.
Okay, fair enough. Move on to recommendation 4.
And certainly part of the wider review of the careers strategy, we would be expecting to be looking at how careers education is made most effective lower down the school, as it were, in years 8 and 9 and 10. And I think reflecting back points that were made just now about the entitlement framework, there will be a continuing work of communication on the meaning of the entitlement framework for all pupils, in order to ensure that both pupils and parents understand what the entitlement is for young people as they make decisions about what subjects to follow and the pathways that are available to them.
Okay. Nobody's indicated, so we'll go on to recommendation 5. You're getting an easy run this morning.
I think if I'm understanding it right, I think the committee heard about particular practices that clearly impressed the committee. But I think it's worth making the point that the Department of Education doesn't prescribe the way in which certain things are taught. Teachers, schools are able to identify for themselves how they teach. But obviously, if there is good practice that needs to be made more apparent or needs to be shared more widely, then I think the review of the strategy needs to take into account the role of sharing of good practice between schools who are doing well by their pupils, informing those schools who have a way to go.
Pat?
You earlier alluded to the fact that going forward now, there is a desire to have, I suppose, a personal roadmap for each of the students. Was that not the case up until now, that you're going to have a personal development portfolio as it's termed here? Up until this inquiry, in terms of each child or young person going through a personal development portfolio, was our recommendation. Was that the case prior to this?
So I'm not aware of where personal development portfolios are being used, whether it's a common practice. I'm afraid in terms of the actual operational practice in schools, I wouldn't have sight of that.
But clearly it is one of the key recommendations coming out of it. I know it's difficult when it's not when it's Department of Education's role. But I think it was yourself, Francis, that there's going to be a much more focus on personal development plans. Would that be fair? From even yourselves?
Yeah. We at the minute there is a record of the interview given to the young person and it's shared with the school. So those plans are there. But yes, I think there's scope certainly to do more with those sort of documents and make sure that maybe they read into the next stage the young person progresses onto and they're built upon. So that's something we could look at, making sure that the totality of the guidance and the advice that the youngster is given is all documented and they know that there's a progression.
Okay. Sammy, you call Sammy?
Thank you, Chair. And my apologies. Well, Chair, I've said a funeral this morning. Sorry for being late. In your response, you recognise the value of sharing good practice. Do you have any examples of good practice, either in Northern Ireland or wider afield?
In terms of school practice, I wouldn't be able to put my finger on specific practices that are operating in schools, but I do know how schools already are sharing practice in terms of careers education. All post-primary schools and special schools are part of area learning communities, and the area learning communities will all have a careers subgroup where the careers teachers will meet together in order, apart from anything else, to understand how careers is being taught, the different elements that are being used in individual schools, and sharing good practice so that schools where it is possibly a greater struggle, they're not resourced to the same degree, are seeing how other schools who are resourced, who are giving priority to careers, are effecting that and operationalising that. And that way, I think sight of what others are doing is one of the most effective ways in which schools are improving their own practice by the experience of others.
And I would assume that the good practice would mean not just within the school, but outside the school as well, in terms of parents and communities not supporting pupils. Would that be the case?
Certainly, any school in their careers education is going to have a mind. It can't just be a matter of what happens in the school, and certainly that would be the case.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Chair.
Right, just on that again, the response to recommendation 4 noted that personal development portfolios will be considered, but in this response, it indicates, this response indicates that it does not prescribe approaches. Now, this recommendation is not so much about careers advice as about ensuring that students, schools develop the allied skills of students to ensure that they are work ready rather than just book smart.
I'm sorry, if I'm getting confused, I think the point I would make is, whilst we don't prescribe pedagogical practice in schools, we would encourage good practice to be shared. And if there are ways in which there are good practices which have been identified, then it's important that those are made known.
Okay, fair enough. Move on to recommendation 6.
Recommendation 6 then leads on from the good practice issue and asks us to look at examples of good practice, including the evidence highlighted in the inquiry, such as that in Finland, where guidance is a compulsory subject within the curriculum. I think the department, through the various reviews we're currently undertaking, the apprenticeship review and the traineeship review, we have already established quite good relations with a lot of the countries that certainly Finland, Switzerland, the Netherlands, and also obviously GB countries, Wales and Scotland and England. We're looking very closely at where there are examples of good practice. What we're finding so far is that there are some good practice of some aspects. For example, work experience. There's some really good examples of work experience in Switzerland. Again, if you look at Finland and Denmark, some really good experience of work pre-entry guidance before young people embark on training, for example, or further education beyond 16. That pre-entry guidance is a prerequisite before they embark on a course. Those are the sorts of things we're looking at so far. So there is lots we can learn there, and we will certainly be doing that.
Okay. I think it's a combination of desk, sorry, Chair, it's a combination of desk research which we can do over the internet and also then by, if required or if there's something interesting in an area, we'll go and make a physical visit through the contacts we've built up.
Yeah, and I think on that the committee would like to be kept updated on the examination of policies into the other countries. That's something you can.
Or good shared practice to share it with us as well.
Yeah. The other thing that might be worth noting, Chair, is that the Career Service is represented on a European network of its lifelong guidance, but it's European lifelong guidance policy network, and that involves most of the European countries involved in development of career services. It also has links to an international symposium on careers guidance as well. So what we're finding across the world, not even just within Europe, but a lot of countries are struggling with developing their services, but the key thing that they all share is the need to match the abilities and aspirations of their people, whether it's young people or adults, with the future needs of the labour market. So there's a lot of commonality across the world on those issues.
Okay, thank you. Again, we'll move on to number 7.
The committee recommends that we include the ongoing review of economic inactivity in the development of the economic inactivity strategy and include the role of the career service should play in signposting those who are economically inactive into training, education and ultimately employment. We will make sure that as we move through the review, we will be joining the dots with our colleagues in the employment service who are in the lead on the economic inactivity strategy.
Okay, happy enough with that? Number 8.
This is the...
Well, it's the committee have recommended that we look at practical financial advice provided to potential and current students to ensure the door to further education and higher education is not closed to individuals due to cost. I think this also will tie in with the DETI financial capability strategy, where they're moving to try and make sure that individual citizens have a financial capability or an ability in themselves to understand the financial implications of their actions, and we'll work with them in terms of ensuring everybody understands the costs of further and higher education and also how that can be mitigated, and they can make an informed choice then.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, clearly it's something the committee is interested in terms of widening participation, which is the theme of this, to be honest. So we'd like to see a more progressive approach, particularly when we get into a climate where welfare reforms are going to be hitting big hard across families across Northern Ireland. and the fear in terms of affordability has been examined thoroughly.
I would agree, definitely.
Okay, moving on.
For recommendation 9, then, this is about making sure that we support those with learning difficulties to manage the transition into work, and the suggestion that we should be using employers and mentoring schemes and looking at best practice elsewhere. We fully agree that that's a key piece of work that we can further develop. We do put considerable resources into supporting young people in particular with learning difficulties, but not exclusively young people. Make sure that we join up with other agencies and manage that transition, help them manage that transition. But using employers more and mentoring schemes more and role models from industry is something that we'll look at as part of the review.
Yeah, again, it's something I have an interest in, particularly learning disability, and I would like to see how the department is going to introduce some level of targeting to ensure that more people with learning difficulties are able to go to further education or the work market. So I would like to see how you're going to progress that.
As I say, that is something we're acutely aware that this issue needs further work. We have developed good relationships with schools, not just special needs schools, but all schools now who have pupils with learning difficulties as well, because increasingly mainstream schools would have a lot of pupils with learning difficulties. So we have arrangements in place so that we're involved in transition planning meetings and subsequent planning meetings, so that the idea of maximising potential is there from day one, and raising aspiration as well is often the issue there. So that's why we particularly like the idea of mentoring that you've mentioned in the report. That's something we will look at, and also using role models within industry to encourage young people who have learning difficulties to be aware of what they can achieve, because that'll be a key piece in the review.
Chair, this is fundamental to give a bit of peace and to a lot of parents, and I would encourage the department to progress at this stage of an event of encouraging, key ambassadors in industry that are going to bring on and have been mentoring people with disabilities or learning disabilities, and certainly we would be a part of that as well in terms of having an event here that can encourage and motivate key industry players or small businesses to take on, because you're quite right on the confidence and the aspiration that they would have.
Bronwyn?
Yeah, just on that point, in my own constituency, one of the concerns that parents raise during the transition process is that their children have nowhere to go to after that finishes. So you need to be cognizant of that as well, and obviously that will be flagged up in this inquiry that's ongoing in terms of the provision for special educational needs, but it is a very real problem, in particular west of the Bann rural areas. And I know that there are some good models in Belfast that we need to be looking at and bringing in to areas where there is no provision.
Again, I've no doubt the committee will revisit this again whenever it's engaged in this new inquiry. We'll be moving on to recommendation 10, and the chairman has arrived, so we're going to hand over to him while you're giving the briefing on recommendation 10.
Recommendation 10 then is for both departments to develop a strategy to identify and address the barriers facing female students going into STEM-based careers. This is an area that the Minister in particular has talked on several occasions about gender balance and the need to make sure that we do attract more females into STEM-related careers. It's an issue, I suppose. It's not new and it's not specific to Northern Ireland either. the STEM strategy also addresses this issue about the idea of gender balance. So unless, Michael, you want to say something?
The STEM strategy is a joint strategy with ourselves and 5 other government departments that the department has taken the lead in. We've made a commitment this year to review the STEM strategy. As you'll probably, the committee will be aware, there is a government subgroup and a business subgroup. The business subgroup in particular have taken the whole concept of gender equality as a major issue for them. They have worked with the Equality Commission and held a seminar in January which have outlined what they believe is the best code of practice to create a gender balance within particularly STEM subject areas and those sectors which rely on STEM. They're hoping to produce a code of practice for CEOs, for business leaders, which can hopefully make it easier for them to actually address the gender imbalance in the world of work and those coming into the world of work. There's also action being taken particularly in the ICT and in the engineering sector, which have experienced a strong gender imbalance with certainly a lack of an imbalance of females in the workforce. And there are actions, individual actions being taken forward. I can share that information with members if they wish. Some of them are run by the sector skills councils like SEMTA, others by eSkills. Some are web-based, others are more, SEMTAs are actually about getting women into opportunities in engineering. So it's an issue that we're aware of and we'll work with the people who are doing the STEM review. It's part of the one team within the division.
Right. Is there enough coordination across all the strategies, Michael? I know I've raised how many strategies the department has in the past, but is there actually coordination across the whole sector or across the whole department, including DE, that's going to produce results rather than just statements? Yes,
there are. I've just come from a meeting this morning on the engineering group, and there was DE were represented there. So it may not be visible, it may not be seen on the surface, but there is a lot of effort to join up and to work together. Both DE and ourselves, particularly in this area of careers, we're working very closely with DETI and Invest NI on the economic engagement. So it does happen, Chairman.
Okay. Members, any questions on point 10? Okay. Recommendation 11 then.
I mean, which is identifying the need for the emphasis that's being placed on STEM subjects in schools to include that insight into how it relates to the world of work and to careers. I think it's a valuable point that is being made. I think with the review of the career strategy and also the forthcoming review of the STEM strategy, it is a point that will be brought out by the fact that those two reviews are running close together. Department of Education funds a number of programs, or rather a number of third-party organisations running a variety of programs in schools in support of business education, in support of enterprise and entrepreneurship. And there may well be opportunity for greater synergy between those programs, STEM programs, which also are run by third-party organisations in schools.
Okay, thanks, David. I think that's fair enough. Yeah, department's taken on the recommendations, which is probably about. Members, anything? Okay, recommendation 12. You again, David.
Yes, I mean the intention to see improved uptake in STEM subjects has been there for some time, and there is a target for the proportion of STEM A-level entries, for example, which we're on target to meet. That work will continue. I don't think it's the expectation that we will see an early plateauing of that, but rather the focus continuing to be on the importance of those areas. How that can be addressed needs to be brought up to date, having been the STEM strategy for a number of years, and it being time to review that and look forward to the next period. And certainly the committee's recommendations will need to be taken on board within that context.
There's a 5% target there, David. What percentage has been achieved to date? Anyway?
I was conscious as I was rereading this now, I don't actually have that figure in front of me, but I can check to make sure that we've got the full set of figures.
Okay. Members, anything on? Okay, recommendation 13.
This is the development of outcome measures to enable the Assembly and wider public to evaluate success, particularly amongst our success in STEM, and to provide a level of assurance that we're being responsive to the needs of the economy. This is, again, this is an issue that all the career services across the world seem to be grappling with at the minute, this issue of impact and measurement. Our current measures would be very much around activity and outputs in terms of the number of people we see, and indeed what happens to those people in terms of where they progress on to. We also would have measurements in terms of the customer satisfaction levels between adults and young people. And then we also have the matrix, which is the external assessment from the Department for Business Innovation and Skills in England. But we know that that's not enough, that those are broad brush, and we would prefer much more tangible outcome measures, particularly around STEM and particularly around making sure that we are delivering to the needs of the economy. So we welcome that recommendation, and that will be taken forward as a key piece in the review.
It may also be added, worth adding, Chair, that we do have as a department within the programme for government a target specifically relating to the uptake of STEM, and it's also within the skills strategy, Success Through Skills Transforming Futures. There's a specific target in terms of increasing the uptake of STEM.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting topic. The ETI obviously inspects careers provision, but at what point do we survey people, say 10 years out of school, for example, to see what their thoughts are in relation to the careers guidance that they receive? What are some of the key outcome measurements at this moment in time to evaluate the success or otherwise of careers guidance?
From our Department for Employment and Learning, there are no longitudinal studies. The outcome measures that we look at are the number, as I say, the number of people we've seen and where they progress to in the short term. So where they progress to after leaving school, whether that's at 16 or 18. But I think you're right, to highlight the impact issue, which is looking at what steps do people take as a result of the guidance that they received over a 5 to 10 year period or whatever. That's something that we will be looking at. As I say, it's not unique to us. Lots of careers services across the world are looking at this issue. One of the problems, I suppose, with it is that there rarely is just one reason why people take a particular career path or don't. There can be lots of other factors, but nonetheless, I think it's accepted that we do need to have more tangible and transparent outcome measures.
Thanks, Chair. I think that is important. I think that was one of the issues that we came across in the inquiry, was kind of the short-term nature of assessment of outcomes, and we hear frequently that there's a need to adjust our understanding, outlook on education and training and employment to being a lifelong continuum. And I think at the moment there is still too much different sections of that continuum are content if they've progressed someone to the next section, rather than stepping back and everybody looking together at what the wider outcomes are for an individual over a longer period of time. So it's encouraging to know that you'll be looking at that as part of the review. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Can I just add, David, the Department of Education commissioned a 1.2 mobile teaching laboratory and workshop.
Yes.
How is that used across boards or schools? Or
it is managed from one board, but is used across schools across the entire jurisdiction. It is in use constantly. Basically, it is driven out to the school. It can be set up in a number of different configurations depending on how it is being used in the school on that occasion. It occasionally is parked outside here if there's an event. I've certainly seen it here. It was also used, for example, at the BT Young Scientist and Technology exhibition in Dublin. It contains kit which no school is likely to have the resources to have of their own. And as a result, it tends to be a whole lot more exciting even than the regular classes. And it can be taken down a particular scientific route or a particular technological or engineering route, depending on what they want to use in that school on that occasion. I think, from what we hear, if there could be 5, 10 of them, no one would complain, but they are an enormous resource.
How do schools bid for them or book them, or?
I must admit, I don't know the process they go through, but
Is it the same? Is it the same schools? Is there?
No, I think it's. I mean, I think there is an effort to ensure that it is shared fairly, and it doesn't get monopolised. But clearly, it's going to be of particular value in areas where the school itself, particular value to those schools, perhaps smaller schools, where the degree of material available in the school is more limited.
Okay, thank you. Recommendation 14 then.
Yes, I mean, I think in response to the point about ensuring that schools are adequately resourced, I've mentioned the STEM track, but ultimately the local management of schools means that it's for the schools to determine how their budget is allocated.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm jumping forward there. Members, anything else on 14? 15?
Yeah, but just on 14, Chair, you know, we appreciate that the budget's delegated to the schools and they use it as they see fit. Is it not time, whenever careers are so important in schools, to get young people into the right course of employment? Is it not then, has the time not come whenever all schools should be asked to set aside so much to ensure that they have a proper careers advice system within that school in order to guide and direct the young people into the right sphere of employment? And it's all very well saying, well, we'll leave it to the school to manage their own budget and they can put into careers whatever they wish. But, you know, we've seen that careers in some schools has been the Cinderella within the departments, or within the schools, and it has proved, well, some areas disastrous as trying to get young people into the right course of employment. So has the time not come when some direction should be given to schools on this matter?
I'm not sure that necessarily ring-fencing an element of the budget for a particular purpose in that way would necessarily be effective in achieving, I mean, what a legitimate aim that you're setting out, which is to ensure that every school is providing a good level of careers education and so on. I think the fact that careers education is inspected, and therefore there is focus upon it in inspection, is a very effective way of ensuring that schools are focusing on its value. I think the importance that parents and pupils will place on good careers advice as a child goes through school is also a critical area, a critical lever in ensuring that the careers education is up to scratch. Ultimately, it will be for the leadership of the school to determine how the school's budget is spent, and I think that's a very important principle. But it is not that the principal of the school is taking arbitrary decisions, but rather is taking decisions in line with what his school or her school needs to be doing. Boards of governors in those regards are also absolutely critical.
Chris?
Why is ring fencing a budget not effective, and why is publication of reports effective?
And I'm possibly not the person to give you the theology of local management of schools, not my area of responsibility within the department. But as a general rule, the most effective way of seeing schools perform at their highest level, and this is seen internationally, is giving the greatest degree of autonomy to schools, plus the greatest degree of accountability commensurate with that autonomy. What are the outcomes the school is producing in terms of the education that they're providing, and allowing the leadership of the school to determine how that should be achieved. Because every school is going to be quite different, and therefore the allocation of resources within the school is a very nuanced and very carefully achieved exercise. And to withdraw autonomy in an area actually does not then give the leadership of the school the ownership of responsibility for the outcomes. So I think you made the observation that there will be those schools where the provision of careers education is not of the highest standard, and you've identified that may well largely be about the significance given to it by the leadership of the school. If it was actually determined by the Department of Education that the leadership of the school was no longer responsible for allocating money, but the department was allocating money, you would actually be taking it away even from those leaders who do believe that it is an important area of responsibility. You are removing the autonomy and you're removing the authority of the head teacher in that regard. I know that is not an immediately compelling response to what I think is could be a very straightforward reaction to getting more resource to careers education. But in the long term, I think it is shown in education systems internationally that the greater autonomy of schools is actually the most effective way of ensuring that they are delivering.
I think it's an interesting, important debate. I think I understand where the Deputy Chair is coming from, and I know that is the line in relation to autonomy that is the prevailing line, but especially in relation to careers education, information, advice and guidance, I'm struggling to see why you would need it to vary so greatly across schools. Maybe there are other subject areas where the need for autonomy is greater, but it seems to me that surely there is some form of core template or delivery that could be required of schools to put in place. I think this is something that can run, but I think you're hearing a particular view of the committee, so hopefully that's something that's examined in a bit more detail in the review. You mentioned the word outcomes as well, and we've already discussed today that there may be need to look at exactly what that is. So maybe that can influence what work the school is required to undertake in terms of what outcomes it's seeking to achieve. If it is just to move someone on to the next stage, then I would hazard that that's going to skew the relevance of the careers guidance that is being offered as well. So interesting debate, Chair. Thank you.
I think it's something I can pick up. I think something, David, you can feed back to the review, because there's so many other things that headmasters or principals don't have autonomy in. And maybe careers guidance and advice is maybe something that maybe needs tightened down.
Yeah, Chair, I think if this review is to mean anything and to be effective and to deliver on what we have set out for it to deliver on, then it must be at the highest standard within all the schools. It must be placed in that key position and one of the highest standard within the school in order to deliver. I don't accept that there are schools following on from this, that there may well be schools that will not have it at that level. I think that's where it has to be placed.
Okay. Okay, recommendation 15.
Okay, this is the proposal that we developed a fit for purpose careers website, similar to My World of Work in Scotland and the careers portal in the Republic of Ireland. Just to let the committee know that we have already started work on this, and it's something that we recognise ourselves as well, but needed further development. We want to look at much more online and multimedia channel delivery, and the driver for that is to make sure that we offer a service to people in a way in which suits them and at a time that suits them, and the best way we feel to do that is making the best use of the technology available. It's also a way, of course, that a lot of young people want to operate now, so we need to keep ahead of the curve on that one. There is an excellent careers website in Wales as well that both Scotland is looking to modify theirs slightly along the same lines as Wales, and we're already working closely with them as well. So so that's something that will be a key feature of the review. And just maybe to go back to the mention of the personal development portfolio, there could be an opportunity through the use of the website and an interactive channel that we would be able to offer a personal portfolio online, so that it's a live document for the individual, and that obviously then is portable and they keep it with them wherever they go. So that's the sort of thing we would be looking at. So moving away from paper-based into an electronic-based system.
Francis, when you say that work has started, what sort of resource have you allocated to it, and what sort of timeline for completion? Or
well, we've engaged with NI Direct, who would be the main within the department, the main delivery agent for this. We've put a senior member of my team onto this. It's not his exclusive job, but it would take up about 50% of his time at the minute looking at this. Historically, these things can take a long time to work through and develop. We would envisage it would be, you are talking maybe a 3-year line on this one to get it to where we would want it to be. There'll be external, we'll have to cost it. We've asked an independent contractor to look at a costed model of what we should be putting in place, looking at best practice elsewhere. On that costed model, we hope to have the report on that by the summer, and then that costed model will have to bid for the money then to put it in place, and that probably could take up to further 18 months beyond that. So we could be talking about 2.5 to 3 years before we have the final piece in place. And that's assuming we bid successfully for the money for it. But these things do take time to build and develop because there are external contractors involved.
So when your statement says you've started work, really you've started to think about it more?
No, it's Chairman, and to be honest, it's more active than that. We've actually commissioned, as Francis says, with technical consultants. A lot of this is about the software and to develop the technical software. So that person has been commissioned. We're working with NI Direct, which is the government interface with citizens. So it has to fit onto that platform. But we want to be able to do the things that I think the committee want to see, as in the Scottish and Wales example, and that interactivity that we haven't had in the past. So we're more than just thinking about it. We've actually commissioned somebody to give us technical advice. That, as Francis said, will then go on and we'll have to make a business case to develop the full portal. But it's our intention that with a fair wind and financing, we'll be able to do that.
I think just it's worth saying that in the interim, we have a website at the minute that we continue to make sure is as good as we can make it. That's, in terms of NI Direct, that's the second most used service on NI Direct after, I think, MOTs. So given that we all have to go through our MOTs and we don't necessarily have to access careers guidance, we're quite pleased about that obviously the existing service is hitting the mark for a lot of people, but we know it could be better. But we will continue to update our website and put whatever we can and maximise the potential of it. Restricted as it is, as Michael said, it's not as interactive as we'd like it to be, but we will continue to maintain that as we develop the new one.
Okay. Recommendation 16 then, engagement of parents, which I think we've all highlighted in the past, even through careers guidance on apprenticeships and a number of strategies the department's bringing forward. So
yes, indeed, the involvement of parents we see as critical in terms of their influence that they have on young people. We've mentioned it earlier about the idea of staying on at a school or transferring to another one. Parents often have a very specific view on that. So we feel it's as important to educate the parents about the risks and rewards of the various career choices that young people have to make, almost as much as it is the young person themselves. We have done some work on this in terms of the parental guide that we issued last year, and we also have a parents portal on the existing website, but again, that's not as good as we would like it to be. We will continue to develop that, but we would expect there to be much more information available for parents down the line, and especially with the new website. But even in advance of that, if we can put labour market information onto the existing website in a way that is easily accessible and understood by parents, that's really what we'd want to do. We feel that that's the best way to influence parents who can then influence their young people about the importance of looking to the future labour market trends, so that they make career decisions, or their children make career decisions based along those lines.
The Parents' Guide, I remember being launched towards the end of 2013, I think, just as our inquiry was really getting into the nuts and bolts. I think there were cynics in the committee even thought it was launched as a knee-jerk reaction to our inquiry, or to support it, maybe, Michael. Maybe.
More to support, sure.
Support it, yeah. I think that would be the phrase you'd probably use. But, it's... As a guide, is it interactive enough with parents? Is it engaging? Have you worked, have you any feedback from it?
Well, the guide was, it took a long time to develop that guide, even though it's a simple 4 or 5 page booklet. We developed it in association with Parenting NI, and what has sprung from that is that we have a commitment now to have local engagement with parenting groups in various areas around Northern Ireland. We already engage with parents through parents' evenings, so we would attend most of the parents' evenings in schools, and parents can see that we're there and see that we're available for children throughout the year. And we have distributed that parental guide through the schools as well. It was sent out to all the schools, and as a measure, I suppose, of how well it was used, we had to do a further rerun because we were asked for more copies of it. So we've had some anecdotal feedback that it has been well used and well received, but we know that we need to do more in terms of parental engagement. It's a key issue.
The portal, you mentioned the careers advice, was the second to the MOTs. The parents section then of the portal, how wide is it used?
I'm not sure we can, the answer to that is I don't know, but I'm not actually sure we can get that level of detail on it because it hits on the website. But I'll look at that. We might be able to get more detail on whether we can look at the people who then go to the parents portal.
Yeah, no, because it'd be interesting to see if there is an interaction there.
Yeah.
Members, anything on 16? Okay, recommendation 17?
Recommendation 17 was the committee recommended we make labour market information more accessible and develop a more joined up approach to information, sharing it with key stakeholders. We agree. We recognise that this perhaps is one of the measures which could address some of the skills mismatches within the economy if people had more up-to-date labour market information. We would use the review and perhaps the review of apprenticeships to try and see if we can come forward with a mechanism to give us a better indication as to, say, annual demand within the various sectors for new entry jobs and replacement demand. And hopefully in that way we'll be able to find a better way to disseminate it as well.
Okay. Members, anything on 17? Okay, 18?
I think the committee has rightly recognised that there is a challenge in ensuring that pupils are able to access valuable work experience while they're at school. There is a variety in the way in which it's provided and it's experienced by pupils. I think that is a consequence of different approaches being taken in different areas at different times. There is some effort to ensure that there is additional resource provided by the department to support third-party organisations who work in this area, but we know that isn't a universal provision. I come back to the point about the way in which schools use their school budget, local management of schools arrangements, but at the same time recognising that even with that, the support to provision of work experience is something that will need to be looked at very carefully in light of the strategy and the review of the strategy.
Is there any room for a ring-fenced initiative on the work experience and engagement plan?
I'm not sure necessarily whether ring-fencing resources in this area actually even would achieve what is required is the organisation, the access to contacts, the approach taken. And that, I think that does need greater scrutiny, and taking forward the use of work experience as part of this, the overall delivery in the school of careers education. I think that is going to be an important part of the work.
Just to clarify, David, from your response, it seems to be that each education and library board has its own policy or guidance on work experience. Would it not be better to have a departmental one?
Well, it's an operational matter, it's how it's operated in schools, and not a matter that would be determined from the department, from the central department. That's why boards have this role. I think greater unity in the way in which boards operate would always be advantageous. I'm not.
Chair, can I supplement that?
Go ahead.
Why do you need autonomy on work experience?
It's autonomy in the way in which money is spent.
How much money is spent on work experience?
I'm not aware of how, of what the resources in individual schools might be used.
And I just think this is another area where it doesn't seem like an area that needs a great deal of autonomy, but needs a great deal of coordination in terms of the value that the people get out of the experience and the ease of interaction for employer and the uniformity of the ways businesses and organisations can know how to interact with something like a work experience. In our experience, Chair, I think we hear from employers who are willing to interact with something like work experience, but it is wholly inconsistent and non-uniform across the board as to how they actually do that. And if there was a greater degree of consistency and coordination, then you might have much more valuable work experiences for young people as well. Maybe that's something that can be looked into.
David, a note in your response to the department currently funds school employer connections and charter work experience. Those are in two different boards. Isn't that correct?
They operate in different areas.
Yeah. So, is there not a rationale there to fund the same across all areas?
But that's where those organisations operate. We fund organisations to operate. They operate in those areas. There aren't those organisations universally. They don't operate everywhere.
Can you not ask them to expand or put the funding in to put them in all areas?
I think that there will always be a challenge to find additional resource.
Bronwyn?
Yeah, it was really just on the back of your point, Chair, because I know in some areas the onus is on pupils to look for their own work experience, and if they don't get it, then that's it, they sit at home, for that week during their holiday period. So do you have any concerns about that, or, how we can get maybe, teachers to be more proactive in assisting pupils? I know in those particular areas as well, there's a focus on helping students who want to go into the medical profession to get work experience, but if anybody who wants to go into law, that same service isn't provided to them, the onus is on them. Are you aware of that going on?
Yeah, I think this strays into recommendation 19, I think, Chair, as well. So I think that you're absolutely right about that. The ad hoc approach sometimes to work experience is not necessarily something that we think is meaningful. I know the Minister for Employment and Learning is very keen on this area, this work experience area. He wants to see much more cohesion and meaningful approach to the work experience issue. There's a great opportunity to I think have a much more robust approach to how work experience are organised. And I say work experiences because we don't want it to be just a one-off, but work experiences can be formal and informal. But the key thing is to make sure that whatever value a young person gets out of them is it's discussed with them and it's taken forward and it's used to help them make informed choices in the future. This is something that the CBI are very keen to work with us on, and other employers' representatives as well. So this will be a key feature of the review going forward, how we as I say, make the work experience systems more robust, more meaningful for the young person, and that we can get tangible outcomes coming from work experience. It's a big commitment for a young person, especially the able youngsters, the youngsters that they're going to think about medicine and law, etc. For parents to really see the value sometimes of them taking a week or whatever out of school to go and do a week's work experience. There has to be some tangible outcome at the end of it, and we have to demonstrate that. But the other thing is about the inequality point. We have to make sure that irrespective of whether you have these family connections or not, that you have the same exposure and opportunities that people who have them, there are people who haven't got them, they have to have the same exposure. So so that's something that a brokerage system could perhaps be introduced that would make the whole work experience arena a bit more fair and more meaningful. So that is something we will look very closely at as part of the review.
I think, Chair, it's much, and at a strategic level, it's a much bigger issue, this whole engagement from all parts of the education system. We have schools looking for placements, and anecdotally I understand the school pupils being left on their own to try and make their own arrangements. There is a big resource required in getting placements and making sure those placements are good in terms of quality, both for the employer or the business who take the person in, but also from the individual's perspective, that they're not at risk in terms of health and safety and other misuse issues. We have it within full-time further education. We have identified through the review of youth training that placements and work placements are one of the most successful ways of getting people on training courses who are not employed into the world of work. We see it in higher education, where we know that those individuals who take out a year or do a work placement through their degree programme are more likely to be employable, and their grades at the end of the degree will be higher. So every element of the education system is trying to touch into the world of work, into businesses and the world of work, and I think we need to have a much more coordinated or joined up way of doing that. Because not least in case the businesses get turned off and they're under pressure all the time to accommodate visits, placements, and they're asked to come out and talk to school children as well. So it's a two-way process which I think needs better management and coordination. Unfortunately, I don't have an easy answer, so I know the issue, but I haven't been able to come up with an easy answer or solution yet.
Is that not what School Employer Connections actually does? Is that not their...
In the school sector, and the school sector is only one element of the interaction between education and business world.
David, do you want to know this? Because no work experience is something you raised through the entire inquiry.
It was very topical, particularly with the people from the private sector that appeared before the committee, and they were less than happy. And in some instances, the work experience, there's examples through Northern Ireland, it's shambolic. You know, it wasn't coming across well at all, and some of the own personal experiences within the own constituency were shocking, where kids were cleaning playgrounds with black bin liners and litter picks. It was just, there's something that has to be done at some stage to try and up the ante a bit on it, you know.
I think Michael makes the point that there is a wider issue here. I'd even raise it further than that, which is certainly in the school sector. And we're seeing a change towards far greater permeability in and out of schools, and access to schools by employers, and familiarity with schools by employers, but likewise familiarity with local employers by schools. That is changing, and there are some schools where it is very strong. And I think it's not just about work experience, it's about all aspects of what the school is doing. Visibility of what a school is doing, and visibility of the employers around a school, or the employers who have connections to the school, makes a huge difference
not just to the employability of young people coming through and their perspective on the world of work, but actually makes a huge difference to utterly unrelated experience of school and educational outcomes. And some of the most impressive turnarounds in schools which have been struggling have been where there has been a new, developed, close relationship between the school and local employers, because it makes a difference to a young person's understanding of what they're doing 5 days a week when employers are making that connection for them.
See, some of them don't even get the full 5 days. Some are down to 2 or 3 days. And even if they're lucky to get on with an employer somewhere, and we know all these potential vacancies in certain areas of employment, but they're still going in to either be teachers in their work experience or hairdressers, the usual thing from the 80s, 90s right through, and there's no change, there's no guidance, or the advice mustn't be, I don't know, it's just, Michael said, I think we need a bigger overview of the whole thing, to be honest.
Well, thanks, David. Yep. Recommendation 19, I think we've touched on there, and I suppose we're really, have you anything else to say on that? But no, have enough. Just looking forward to the review. Recommendation 20 then.
This is both departments in the plan strategy examine how career-related learning between schools and businesses can be improved. So it's, I suppose, it's similar to the work experience issue. It's using mentoring and role models and good examples of the world of work, so that we can influence young people to make the right choices. I think maybe David wanted to say something, but I think there is an opportunity through the area learning communities maybe to develop relationships with between schools and businesses.
Yes, I mean, this is the point I was coming to in my previous comments about the impact that can be achieved in many different ways between connections between schools and employers. Obviously, there are a lot of schools, and employers are going to want to make sure that any connections they're having with schools is a manageable commitment on their side. There will be instances where the connection needs to be effective between a particular employer and a particular school. There will be other instances where the connection needs to be made between employer and a cluster of schools, maybe locally, and the fact that all post-primary schools belong to area learning communities is actually a very useful element of the ability of employers to engage with schools. And we've heard anecdotally of instances where employers or representatives of industry sectors have asked the department, well, can you give me the names and contact details of the chairs of each of the area learning communities, because we can probably manage 30, or the 6 nearest my headquarters, or whatever it is. And that actually makes the engagement with the schools more manageable. It also means that employers are not being put into a corner saying, what is there a particular type of school that I should be engaging with, but rather the area learning communities cover all post-primary schools, and therefore the connection can be made to all those schools in that area.
Yeah. I think we didn't, as David's point, there were a number of businesses that came in front of us, CBI and even Matrix were saying, the connections needed to be improved and more professionalised. So I think that's part of the review panel. We'll look forward to their findings, I think. Members of Nelson, 20? 21?
This is for the evaluation of good practice and partnership models between the schools and the private sector and voluntary community sectors, and again between schools and businesses. So this would be a partnership arrangement to try and share good practice. It's something that I'm not sure we have considered much, but again, the area learning community might be the vehicle through which we could take this forward. Say something on that.
And there are instances of particular schools with particular employers where the experience has been immensely positive, to see some evaluation of some of those instances to establish the degree to which, or the areas in which, that connection between the employer and the school has had the greatest effect, whether it's mentoring of exam-age students, or it is contact outside the school and visits, or whatever it is. I think that would be enormously helpful.
Members of Nelson 21. Okay, 22 then.
Yes, Chair.
Not agreed.
Well, this is an
Michael.
area where we had some differing views, and we're not sure that we believe, certainly in the Dell side of the careers advisors, that we're adequately resourced in terms of people. We have had an increase in the number of careers advisors actually employed through the recession to actually cope with the larger number of unemployed people who we have to see and give careers advice to. In terms of their professional competence, these, we believe, are highly competent and highly professional individuals. They come with a postgraduate qualification. So they come with their graduate qualification and then are sent for further professional education on guidance for their postgraduate year, and they come to us with a postgraduate qualification. We spend a lot of time and money in terms of their professional development throughout the year. They get 9 full days of professional development throughout the year. 5 of those days are in companies, in the placement in work with companies or other organisations, and 4 full days where they are collectively together, updated on the best practice, etc. So we just didn't understand or didn't see where the committee were coming from in terms of the need for more qualifications and also more people and experienced people coming into the career service.
David, have you?
I'm not sure whether we have any observations to make around the careers advisors. I think points around career
there's possibly
teachers are mentioned later on.
Yeah, there may be I don't know whether there's a misunderstanding or a misreading of this, but I think when you put the recommendation in context of the report, this recommendation was actually in regard to formal qualifications for teachers. We accepted Michael's point in the report under, I think it was paragraph 286, and we noted a different approach, but this was about actually the formal qualifications of careers teachers rather than careers advisors, because we did note from a number of presentations, I think in the Republic of Ireland, the careers teacher must have a qualification to teach careers, as a history teacher must have a qualification to teach history, but there wasn't the same qualification up here, or there hasn't been for the past 10 years. Right. So I think it was the establishment of that qualification to commence with, and then the Department of Education actually taking it on board and making sure their careers teachers were properly qualified.
Right, in which case we may have responded sort of out of sync with the observations
Right.
that the committee were making.
Is that something you want to take away and maybe come back to the committee with?
Yes.
In response, you know, because it's when you take the recommendation in context with the full report, it does clarify that. Members of Union, you add that. Okay, so we might agree yet, Michael.
Hope so, Chair, hope so.
David, recommendation 23 then.
I think on this one we are pressing ahead to ensure that the modules of the CPD modules are complete and delivered as soon as possible. We recognise that it's not been as fast as we would have liked or anyone would have liked, but nevertheless we do recognise the importance of getting that done.
I suppose the questions that all politicians asked when you is not going quick enough, have you a timeline for it? Or
I don't have a timeline at present.
Right. But when you say it's not moving fast enough, have you a target? Have you indication?
No, I'm afraid at the moment I can't come to you with indication of when we the target for which we're in.
When you say you can't give me, is it because you don't have the information here, or you don't have one? There's no one within the department.
To be absolutely honest, I don't know whether there is one, but it hasn't been raised to me to bring to the.
Okay, so we can write to you and get clarification on that. Okay, sorry, members, anything else on recommendation 23? Recommendation 24 then.
I think a very helpful point being made by the committee, which will need to be looked at quite seriously within the context of the review of the strategy. There is already a degree to which teachers in all subject areas as it were, will be encouraged and supported in making the connection between their subject and careers. And I'm very aware of that, having seen inside a lot of schools the way in which that is presented in schools. It may not be universal, and it may be something that can be encouraged further.
I know it's part of the TI inspection. I think the careers provision in school. Is there something that can be used through that mechanism? I know Chris raised it earlier on.
I would have to check back with inspectors as to the range of issues that they're looking at when they're in the course of an inspection. They're looking at careers education. I would be surprised if they weren't also looking at how all subject areas, all teaching areas are covering the connection to careers, but I must admit I don't know precisely.
There's no reluctance within the department to take this forward.
No, I think it's consistent with the place of careers education in the curriculum, that it isn't simply limited to a careers education block in the timetable, but rather is part of a curriculum which has cross-cutting elements, and there will be elements of careers education which can be expected to be taught in other subject areas.
Okay. Members on 24. Recommendation 25.
Chair, we would agree with your recommendations, and we'd want to seek out the those who have contributed to the rich source of data and evidence that you've provided in the report, and we will ensure that the independent panel has access to those individuals and hears first-hand from as many as possible in the course of the review.
Okay, Michael, David, Francis, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Just want to touch on the draft terms of reference for the careers review then.
If I could set out what we plan to do in terms of the terms of reference, but also the structures, we will like to build on the success we've had with the review of apprenticeships and also the review of youth training, where we'll have a small dedicated team, and around them we will have an independent panel of experts. We will use the draft terms of reference, which we have unashamedly plagiarised from your report, taken from your report. Because we do see this as a rich source of data for us, and we, in many ways, see this as what needs done. We want the panel and the review process to show as how we're going to do it now. And so that's how we plan to take it forward. In terms of the terms of reference, these are drafts, still subject to ministerial agreement, but we will be confident that hopeful, it will come in due course, and then we can kick off formally with the review itself.
Okay. When will the panel be established, or the terms of reference formalised by the Minister, do you know?
I haven't got an exact timeline on that, because we're working with two departments, so I can't give you an exact date on that.
And I think the Minister is keen that we hear the views from the committee as well. So these are draft at this stage, pending today's discussion. And then if there's any views coming from the committee, if you think these are reflecting your recommendations enough, or if you think we've left things out or whatever, we're happy to take on board whatever views you want to feed through to us.
Well, I think from the review from the discussion around the recommendations, if there's anything there you just feel that maybe have been missed from these terms of reference, or again if you want to come back to the committee. But I think one thing I will say, we appreciate the feedback today on the recommendations, because it has given value to the work we have undertaken as a committee, and the people who have come in front of us and given us evidence, and the fact the terms of reference for the review has reflected our inquiry. I think this has been a very worthwhile piece of work, and I don't know if the committee can do anything else to support either departments in this work going forward. I'd be more than happy to help that or make it available in the rest of the research or stuff that we completed through the inquiry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Members, anything else on this issue? No. Okay, Michael, David, Francis, thank you very much for your time. Members, just as this was a joint inquiry between yourselves and the Committee of Education, are you content that the Hansard of this session goes to the Education Committee?
And press release.
Okay, members, the draft press release table, are you content that it's released from the committee?
Great.
Yeah. Okay, members, any other business?
Chair, one other item of business I have, and this was raised back in 2012. The Minister was to look at it, and I don't know where we are with it at the moment, but maybe we could go back to the Minister again. It's regarding teachers in England who teach technology and design. They come over here and then they're not allowed to teach unless that they do a course to get a C1631 certificate. Now, there appears to be no courses available to them. They're not allowed to enrol. They're not permitted to enrol in this type of a course here. And unless they get it, then they can't teach here. It seems to be it seems to be a big problem. It's something that has been brought to my attention again. And maybe we could write to the Minister of the Department and find out exactly what is going on. Can this be provided for these folk, or is there some problem or clause that doesn't permit it to be done here?
Okay, no problem, agreed. Members, just one other, I don't know if you're aware, there's been correspondence or come in about the university. I think it was Queen's University advertising their student union places as jobs, and apparently this is out of sync with the 1994 Education Act across the water. I'd see the members smiling, they've all received similar emails or similar correspondence. Members, are you content that we write to the department just to seek clarification as well, and possibly the university just to see what the standing is? Members, any other business? If not, members, date and time of next meeting, or next week there will be no committee meeting, as the committee's nostalgia visit to Glenveigh Special School and Ussel as part of his inquiry into post 1910. The details are tabled at page 53. Our next meeting will take place 10 a.m. Wednesday, 12th of March in the Senate Chamber Parliament buildings. And can I thank the Deputy Chair for filling in for the start of the meeting, Tom? Thank you very much. Members, meeting adjourned.
This is the Northern Ireland